Hi there, and welcome to this episode of Nocturnal Transmission with your host, yours truly, Ryan Kerr. In this episode, we're going to talk with DJ Phillippe Villeneuve, who lives in Toronto and is kind of the shiny pineapple that lights up live spaces. And we're going to talk to him about how it's been not being able to do that this year and what work with YOHOMO.ca has done to keep his spirits bright. And we're going to talk to Brad Allen, who is one of the co-founders of Club Quarantine, which saw some pretty exciting publicity and some fabulous stars like Lady Gaga and Laverne Cox and Kim Petras and a few others. And we're going to talk about how creating digital spaces gives us the opportunity to reach more people and keep people dancing through these uncertain times. So enjoy this episode of DJ COVID. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Ryan.
How are you?
I'm really good today.
It's a whatever day it is. It sure is a good one, probably for somebody.
So far.
Thank you for being on my podcast, Nocturnal Transmission. It is very exciting to be doing this. And a little background, I would like people to know that you helped me get the balls rolling on this iteration. So I just want to say thank you. Yes, and for those not watching, he's doing the international balls rolling hand signal. So there it is. So I wanted to bring you on because I think you're really fantastic, and I see you as being this kind of backbone of the queer nightlife, music promotion, fun, basically industry in Toronto for as long as I've known you. And
Thank you.
Of course, there have been some interesting developments in the world, COVID being a major one. And so things have changed a little bit. And so I wanted to hear a perspective about how COVID has affected nightlife, parties, music, live performance, queer spaces, all the things that I consider you an expert on. So I wanted to start talking with the night that music died. Do you remember where you were when it was like, oh, COVID's happening?
Oh, yeah. I remember very well. I'll tell you about the exact night.
Tell me about the exact night.
Okay. And then I want to hear about yours. The exact night was, the Friday night. What was the Friday? The 13th? I think it was Friday the 13th.
I think it was Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was actually subbing in for the Patchouli brothers at their disco party called Beam Me Up for the first time. So it was a huge honor. So happy to finally play this party for them, which has been going forever.
Even though it probably smelled like patchouli.
Pardon?
Probably smelled like patchouli.
There's definitely incense happening in that club. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very just smelly, vibey.
I love that. Carry on. It's like I'm there.
Smell the mist in the air, the blue lights, the hookahs, and I was DJing with DJ Valerou,
okay,
who is also has this amazing deep knowledge of disco, and so it was us two playing. We're super excited. I remember we were texting before the gig, and I texted Val saying, "Is this okay that we're DJing this? Something's happening in the world. This feels like it might be canceled." And the venue an hour before said, "No, we're going ahead with this. We are confident. We're okay."
Yes.
And then we showed up, we started playing, and the whole thing felt wrong. It felt wrong from the second we walked in. And Shane McKinnon,
yes,
who was a big DJ at some point here in Toronto also, and still DJs some stuff. And anyway, now is a personal trainer anyway. Legend in the community also.
Very kind as well. A very kind person.
Very kind, covered in tattoos, very hot.
Mm-hmm.
Shane was working at the bar too. And so it was this weird little queer moment of us being like, what are we doing here? About 50 people showed up. They danced their faces off. And there was this moment right around midnight where it kind of felt already like people thought they should be leaving. So people danced their faces off for an hour. You could just feel this okay, this is it, we're giving it. And then it slowly trickled. It did not go till 2 a.m. It's just really died down fast because there was this feeling of wow, should we even be here? That was it. And I remember we shut it down. We played, I can't remember what our last disco song was, but Val dropped me off in her car and we just kind of said like, see you later.
See you in a couple weeks, maybe. See you in a little bit of time. And then basically every gig you had planned after that, just everything canceled.
Done.
Off the face
next day there was stuff. Everything just like dun, 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 dun. Although in my case, I think for a lot of people too, it happened like on this like weird scaled basis where we were waiting days before. And you remember those first couple of weeks where it was like, okay, well maybe it'll just like go away.
No.
And it didn't. And we had to keep canceling. And then it just got further and further and we were just canceling into the summer. And then
what was the gig that canceled where you're like, this is going to be here for a little while?
I remember at the time I was programming director for Pride last summer, and when we canceled Pride.
Yeah.
That was a big, real one.
For me too.
Right?
Yeah.
When that one hit, then it was like, oh, because I think we had canceled it in May, I think.
Yeah.
And so even then, it was still so far that impossible to think that by the end of June, we wouldn't be able to dance. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Summer.
No dance, no parades, no gatherings, no drunken, embarrassing text messages. Well, that's not true. I was still able to do those.
Yeah.
Wow. And so now you're kind of like, now you're also kind of waiting for like the possibility of things starting up again because you're kind of still in the same limbo state.
Yeah, forever limbo state of, there was a feeling for a while where, okay, we're coming back, or even at the beginning, there was a bit of excitement when we started doing things online because we thought, okay, we'll just do this for now. This is cute.
Right.
And then we'll dance. So
right.
It's fine. Even by the end of the summer, if we get to have one final party, I remember that was always our head space. It's like, we'll dance by the end of the summer.
By the end of the summer, we'll be fine. Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And we're still waiting. I guess the summer is just extended and a little colder now as we tip toward January. I mean, I remember the last event that I went to was actually an event of yours called Butt Buddies. And you had put on Instagram something about like, if anybody wants to be a butt buddy, and what that meant for those who, for some unknown reason, do not know what butt buddies are. You DJ'd off people's butts. So the volunteers took their pants off, laid on a table, and they were either wearing underwear, a jockstrap, or just nothing.
Or nothing.
And then you put your disc jockey equipment. What's it called with the spinning on it? It turns. It's like a table that rotates. I can't remember the name of it. Is it some sort of a lazy? Yes, the electronic lazy Susan. And you spun that on the butts, and everybody had like a half hour of butt table-ness. So I remember you had put on Instagram. You're like, anybody interested? And I was like. So I was like, oh, me. And you immediately were like, don't worry, Ryan, we're full. There's no spaces available. And I was like, that's fine. It's nice to know how people feel about your butt. And then I ended up showing up with Kevin. And we were the first, like some of the first to arrive. And you're like, actually, there's no one here to be a butt buddy. Do you want to be the first one? So I was your first butt buddy of that evening.
Yeah. And a great butt also.
Thank you.
It was big. It's juicy. It's good.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you said that because that was in our pre-conversation about things that you had to say during this interview. And I'm really glad we've ticked that one off. But it was the beginning of March. It was what, the 3rd or the 4th? It was
the second weekend. I think it was like March 9th, I think, something like that.
March 9th. And so we were like ignorant. There was not a thing yet. And between the 9th and the 13th, it was like, it was just, it was parties over. So that was the night that I remember that night as being like really fun. And on the way there, I had gone to an art opening for somebody, and there was like all these share platters and people were congregating and it was indoors and really fun. And I didn't realize at the time that this was like going to be the last opportunity, but I did have fun at your event. So we talked about the night the music died, but you have a huge and long history of music in the city. You started writing concert reviews. Like, how did you become Mr. DJ Phil Villeneuve?
Oh my God, you really went all the way back.
Well, so you're kind of a legend. I mean, I'm glad that we're friends because if you can't beat him, join him, right? Like I could never surpass your grandeur. But you started, so you've been a major fan of live music, live shows since you were wee. So who did you write reviews for?
In the very beginning, I moved here for journalism school, and my first internship was my dream internship, and I got it right away, and that was working at Chart magazine.
Amazing.
Back in the day. It was like a music magazine here in Toronto.
Yes.
Like a magazine. And started writing for them and became a staff writer, and then worked there for ages. It was really great. That's where I got all my chops and would write music reviews into the 4 a.m. just like be at every show and just take it all in. Take it very seriously.
Yes.
Yeah. And then started DJing from there, throwing parties and inviting friends. And so thankful for the friends that would come to those early day awful parties. And then, so weird, those parties. But then slowly started playing actual parties that people went to, like Hump Day Bump and Big Primpin', and then started my own parties with other friends, and then people were coming to those. And so it just kind of slowly built into like people could slowly trust that when I was throwing something that enough queer people would be there. It's fun, it's welcoming, it's non-judgmental, just go.
Well, and at the same time that you were DJing, and so you had you had one paw in the music industry, like watching concerts, and so you knew a ton about music, and you were reviewing it, and sort of you were probably at a lot of concerts being like, make this concert more wonderful if there were queer people here as well. That might be more fun. But then you started working at Extra Magazine, or Fab Magazine first, which was an arts and culture, but like basically a nightlife rag. Like what's happening in the city. So you started working there. You became the managing editor.
Yeah.
You became the editor of Fab Magazine, which is like all about nightlife.
Wild, yes.
So here you're just poised to be like the arbiter of excellent nightlife taste.
That's what I built it into.
Yeah.
Isn't that so messed up? I totally forgot about that too. But like, I started interning at Fab because at the same time I was at Chart, I needed some gay in my life for sure. So then I was interning also at Fab and taking photos and inputting listings and just part of that like buzzy world of like what was going on in gay Toronto, which was a lot back then. There was a lot happening, right?
There was so much that it was actually like confusing to know where to go. Like there were so many conflicting. It would be like drag show A, B, C, or D every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There were so many different venues. Of course, we're speaking in the past tense because not only did some of those venues just like die of natural causes, but then we have the virus, which may also cause some deaths.
Took a bunch more out.
But the other thing that was really cool about you, and just like to heap the praise on, is that you programmed for events that were above and beyond the queer community. So in Toronto, there's Church Street is like the historic gay community, and then there was the establishment and the growing popularity of the Queer West area. But you still move parties around to all different venues in Kensington. You move them to Dundas. I mean, you kind of like, you created an aura that people just wanted to go to. And I think you made really accessible spaces. And the party that I'm thinking of the most is Tapette, which is a French-Canadian gay-themed party, which is pretty specific. And yet was
niche.
A little bit niche. And yet was like always jammed, super fun. Lots and lots of my friends, none of whom speak any French, were there, loving it. And so there was and for those who don't know, tapette means fly swatter in French, but it's also like slang for if you have a limp wrist, you're fly swatter.
That's right.
So it's a term of derision. But look at you
It's very vulgar in
reclaiming
Quebec.
it. I have a couple
Yeah.
of tank tops that say Tepet on them that I bought at
Yeah.
a party, and I wore them traveling at one point, forgetting that that's like not a word that anyway. It was an interesting hike that glorious sunny day somewhere in France.
Oh God.
Whoops. So eventually Fab Magazine died and you transitioned to Extra. I'm telling your life story, by the way.
I love it. Thank you for this refresher.
You're welcome. And Extra is a national queer newspaper, and it was again a magazine that was paper and printed, and of course, RIP pages that RIP. See what I did there? Thanks. But with Fab being gone, there was really a hole where listings for nightlife used to be, and so you started your own nightlife thing. What's it called, Phil?
Yeah, it's called YOHOMO.ca.
YOHOMO.ca. How fantastic.
YOHOMO.
YOHOMO. Which was also featured on RuPaul's What's the Tea podcast.
Yes, they spoke about it and praised us. Well, RuPaul said our name and praised us. Michelle did too.
Well, there you go. So you've got double the endorsement.
Yeah.
And so you started your own kind of like nightlife listing thing. But it was also arts and culture. Whenever somebody would message me on Grindr and say, I'm from another country, what should I do in Toronto? I'd be like, go to yohomo.ca, check it out. And they would always say, thank you. And then I'd say, did you want to have sex with me? And they would say no. And then it was always nice.
Oh, that went down.
That's how that happened. But you were really like almost this time last year, because we're almost a year into the pandemic. You were running YOHOMO. I mean, co-running, because you have some friends that are running it with you. So you were like accepting and publicizing different listings. You were throwing your own parties. You were having new DJ opportunities, and you were also working as a bingo. What would you call it? Bingoer? Dabber? Hostess with the mostess. You were being flown. Where were you being flown to? Miami?
For bingo, that was crazy. That was LA and Miami and New York and Chicago for that.
So this was like a week, a monthly thing. You were being flown. So you were like at the top of your gay over here.
Just really living it up, and things just really going places. It felt like definitely there was a momentum.
So we're really setting a scene here for you being really at the top of the airplane and then being pushed off without a parachute.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
So
still falling.
Okay, great. Well, bye. Good luck with everything. So your initial reaction, so no more live events. So you did a couple of parties online, right? Where you basically you kept the same time slot, and you said, okay, well, Friday nights, we normally do this party, so we'll do this party online. It'll be a Zoom call. And how did those go?
Yeah, let's try it out. At the beginning, they went really well because everyone was still freaking out and still wanted to connect and needed that. There's some people that really loved the disconnect.
Yes. Which
I fully get also, but some people still really, the folks that would go out every Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or whatever, just still really needed something.
Yes.
So we did that, and those people were there. They were excited. There was an energy. People were drinking at home and doing whatever they did at home. People would dress up their bathrooms and create landscapes in their bathtubs. It was really wild in those first couple months.
Yes.
And then it fell off real quick. I think with like summer, people were going outside more, and then just the Zoom fatigue, people just like not wanting to go online at all at the end of the day.
Well, I think Black Lives Matter, like George Floyd's murder and all of the kind of the racial uprising also shifted a little bit of the celebratory nature.
Definitely.
Where it was like, should I be really dancing in my home right now? I should be taking to the streets. I should be fighting for what's right. But it didn't, it just kind of, it fizzled for you.
Definitely. And even that makes me think of, even with Pride, that sort of happened right as Pride was taking off, and we had to just like cancel the first week of events because exactly that reason. Like no one felt like dancing in their living room in front of a computer. Like that's just all of a sudden seemed so trivial and like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it took a while to come back out of that.
So now where would you say we are? How are you filling your time? What are you hopeful for? What's working? It's time for the upswing part of the interview. You know, the part where you're like, but it'll all be fine.
Yeah. I think summer was the actual pause button for everyone, that like most people shut everything down, went to a park, started going for walks, started the trend of actually meeting people if they could, and like really just getting away from all this technology for a bit. Summer was that real thing that kind of like calmed everyone down and helped for a sort of kind of a reset, so that in the fall stuff started happening a bit. So you see panels, you start to see drag shows a bit. Canada's Drag Race brought people like back to their TVs and their computer screens a bit, right? And so then they started doing stuff online, and we wanted to watch. And now that it's getting cold, it seems like people are coming back inside and they're kind of open to this type of thing again. So I think now we're in that phase where we're going inside. We're not going anywhere for the next 4 months. So it's up to us, people like you with what you're doing, people like myself, like lots of our friends, to produce like cool shit now. Now's the time to like not just do a Zoom party with headphones and a mix. Like no one wants to see that anymore. Now's the time to like step your pussy up and produce something that looks cool and sounds good, and like, I don't know, give the people something to bite into a bit more.
Yeah,
that's where we're at, I think.
I mean, I was also thinking kind of in the opposite direction, but just the fact that like those of us, I'm really lucky because I've been working from home, so I haven't my job transitioned pretty seamlessly into a home situation, which obviously has its good and bads. But you've been releasing mixes on YOHOMO of things like you had a what was it called, the Apocalypse remix or something, or something with lots of sounds.
Social dissonance.
Dissonance. And I listened to that over and over again, and I would have it in the background when I was working, because I think there's also this acceptance that like we're not going to return to those of us who have been working in offices, we're not going to return to that life anytime soon. So we may as well settle into new solutions as well. And so listening to the music has been really awesome. So, you know, with more interest, I mean, I'm getting to a place where like New Year's Eve is real soon, and if I'm going to be alone, I should probably be looking at you. I mean, are you going to... you specifically. So I'll be FaceTiming you at 11:59. Just make sure you have your phone nearby. So are you thinking of having a party? Are you going to be... Is there plans for like some sort of a Zoom-y situation?
Zoom-y thing. There are already, even through YOHOMO, we've uploaded like 3 parties so far in Toronto specifically.
Okay.
So there are like, things are gonna happen. There will be things. It's for like even specific groups of people. So there's definitely gonna be stuff online to do. And I know with YOHOMO, we're trying to produce a big party on the big night. We're just sort of like still figuring out things and how to make this happen to make it really interesting. But we want to make it free.
Yes.
And we want to make it big and easy to access so that everyone can watch it from whatever they're on.
Yes.
Just make it something easy, fun, just put on. So if you're in a house with your roommates or with your grandparents, or you're by yourself, that it's something fun to watch. I think that's all we're going to get to do at New Year's.
Yeah. I mean, we can still get drunk and we can text our exes though. So let's not forget that.
There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of traditions that we won't let die just because of some silly virus. And then what, like the first, the first vaccines have been distributed in Canada and in the US. Do you think that, by the summertime will be like, what do you think that the next normal is going to be? Do you think it'll be like people getting their temperatures taken at the front door of clubs and then business as usual, or?
I don't think, from what I hear and what I've already heard leading into next summer, which is stuff already being canceled into next summer because folks are freaking out a bit whether to put things in their budget lines for the summer because we don't know what's happening.
Right.
I think it's going to be very similar to the last summer we just had, where hopefully we'll be able to have just small groups, and hopefully we'll be able to just do creative stuff outside wherever we can. But I don't see us going and dancing inside into next summer at all. I don't see it back there, even with a vaccine. I'm not like, I don't even know how that would work. And that seems like the dance world, because we could go back to theaters, we can go back into movies. You know, it feels like we could go back to that stuff, but to go back into a sweaty dance club with 2,000 people is not something I don't think people will want to do. It'll just freak too many people out. It won't even be fun, you know. There'll be too much of like, those feelings of like, is this right? Is it okay? Like, and the whole point of those nights is it is all right and it is okay. And you just let go of everything when you walk into that club. That is right.
Yes.
You're not thinking of anything. It's just freedom.
Yep.
So if there's even a bit of like, is this right, wrong, or allowed, not allowed? It's just like the whole thing's ruined.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it'll be fun. I think it's going to be a very fun summer. It'll just be really creative and weird still.
I mean, I think this summer was actually quite creative and fun. I mean, the moments,
I loved it.
When I think back to some of the things that I did, you know, some of them were like watch the sunset almost every day, like go to the park and sit on the side of a hill and watch the sunset. And there were some incredible moments where I was sitting and you were DJing in the middle of a park on one of the hottest days. You like, remember that day? I was a melted popsicle and I was just
dripping.
Yeah. And I was like, well, what else am I going to do? And it was like very freeing to just be like, we're all in the same situation. We're all chasing a little bit of hope, you know? And there's something so queer about innovation, I think, in the face, like looking at disaster and choosing to celebrate. And I think that's one of the reasons why I adore you so much, is because that's always the way that you look at a situation, is like, okay, how can we make this the best version? And so I think, you know, looking into next year, as long as you're still doing what you're doing, we're going to be okay.
Great. Well, I'll keep doing it. There was definitely periods where I did not know what the fuck. Like when I saw DJ friends of mine who are pretty established people, like going back into a regular work world, because they literally had nothing. There was nothing left for them in the current world. I started freaking out, but then I don't know, through the different waves of good and bad and feeling like shit or feeling confident, just chose to stay and keep pushing. And yeah, I think like you said, like it has always been, and it will continue to be, queer people that push and innovate and shake things up and find a way to add some sparkle and have a good time, even when things seem like bleak and hopeless. And even if you're having a shitty day and you're like, I don't want to go sit in a park and listen to music, you just go.
Yeah.
And then you'll see,
what else am I going to do?
Okay, what else am I doing?
Yeah.
Just go sit on the end of the park where no one else is and just listen to it. And all of a sudden you'll be like, yeah, we're going to be fine.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was there and I believed because you believed. So don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah. I wrote that song. It's an original. Well, thank you so much for your time today, DJ Phillippe Villeneuve. I adore you, and I'm going to see you online for sure. And I hope that there's something to look forward to on New Year's Eve and, you know, beyond.
And beyond. Who knows? But I'm here for it. I know there's a lot of us that are, even this podcast is a thing. Look at this is something positive coming out of it. So I don't know.
Well,
I feel like
COVID
so
made the
good.
radio star.
Right?
COVID made the
Back to
radio
radio.
star. Basically.
It's all messed up.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, and I will see you on the World Wide Web, the WWW.
Yes. See you on the internet.
Goodbye.
Love you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Yee. Hi, Brad.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I feel like sort of like with a name like Brad, you must have been quite a teenage heartthrob.
Yeah, that's exactly what they called me in high school. Teenage heartthrob. That's what they yelled at me.
Oh.
Yes, was teenage. They went, "Hey, teenage heartthrob."
And you turn
Get
around.
out of here, teenage heartthrob.
Look at me, I'm Bradley D.
Yes, that's the one. Exactly. That was my story.
Well, you know what? I bet they're not laughing now because you started. Tell me, so you're involved in Club Quarantine. You started Club Quarantine. You're a big cheese now. Like large.
Yeah,
you're a larger cheese than you were.
You hear that, Dad? Yes. I was, yeah, I mean, it's definitely very exciting to be a part of something that you really kind of developed on its own. Like, yeah, it's crazy. Like, I haven't processed it to this day. I don't think any of us have, because it was like, it was all happening so fast. And like, if we took time to process it, everything would have fell apart, like would have fallen apart.
So tell me about Club Quarantine. So pretend that I didn't attend any of them, although I did, but pretend that a listener doesn't know what Club Quarantine is.
So basically every heterosexual media that like has interviewed us, they never have been. Having to explain that is the wildest thing that to this day I had to explain this to a government worker the other day, side note. And like, imagine explaining like what a queer Zoom party was. I was like, oh no. I was like, this is bad. Like, I don't know how to really like explain this. I just say it's a virtual queer dance party that happens online. We use the Zoom platform because it's the platform that allows us to house as many people and allows us to utilize all the features that are kind of specific to Zoom, because no one, believe it or not, in this year has really come up with a competition for Zoom. I heard that there's like developers, but like Zoom maintains its status as like the one.
Yeah.
But so basically we use Zoom. I'm sure everyone is now, used to what Zoom is, knows what it is. And
well,
we just
there's
use
even Zumba, isn't there?
They're sorry?
Isn't there Zumba now?
Zumba is exactly what it is. Yeah, Zumba. Yeah, that's exactly what Zoom is. Yeah. It started a few years ago by a bunch of white women feeling saucy in their homes. Yeah, when was Zumba big? I feel like that was like 2000, like I want to say 9.
I want to say 9. I want to say like everything that has shaped us, but like intrinsically, but in an embarrassing way, is on the cusp of a new decade.
Oh, absolutely, because it's like peak that decade, and then it like restarts. And 2009
like,
was like, we need a fresh start because this is wild.
Terrible.
But so basically we just use Zoom, and it's a dance party. Everyone logs in using their cameras at home.
Yeah.
And we use the spotlight feature to spotlight people. We have DJs who come in, we have drag performers, and it just becomes this really interactive experience that you kind of have to see to believe, because I think a lot of people, most of the time when they come in their first time, they're like, wow, this is so weird. And then they end up, loving it. So basically that's what it is. And we also have we've been blessed to have a large social media following, and that continues to grow alongside of it and become a separate thing, but together. So it's become a community space for our community. And, there was 4 co-founders, but this is such a community grown thing, like totally 100% community grown. So we just keep it that. And yeah, that's why I really kind of like to describe it more of a community space now, like a virtual community space, that you don't maybe see a lot. Cause I think that there's like, there's a lot of places that are, starting to bloom, and like a lot of amazing spaces online
Yes.
for queer people. But I think up until this point, it's kind of been white, cis, gay, as I say that as a white, cis, gay, but, like with like out, right? It's like that whole moment of like, a lot of the media has been through that lens. So, and that's one specific journey. It's a story to tell, and it's an authentic story to tell. But I just feel like there's such a lack of representation when it comes to everyone else in the community,
Right.
and that's a vast number of people, I'm sure.
Right.
So it's like, we just, to keep that focus and to keep it a community, like a queer community, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yes.
So that's where it's growing into, long story short.
Wow. And so you got a little, like, there were some celebrity endorsements, you could say. Who are some notables that have sort of graced the virtual space?
Oh, we had Laverne Cox, we had Lady Gaga, we had Charlie XCX, Kim Petras. Oh yeah, we
Wow.
had a lot.
So I had this chat with Phil Villeneuve before you,
Mhm.
and I wanted to pair the two of you together because Phil is such a scene stir, and I mean that with like the absolute, the most admiration,
No,
that he
absolutely.
he enters a space and it's just like Phil is here. He lights up a room and he brings so much energy and he feeds so much energy off of the audience. There's this great,
Oh,
relationship.
Phil is a star.
He is a
Phil is a
star. And and I I can see in our interview he was talking about how it's tough to shine from the other side of a laptop in the same way, right? And that it's a very different feedback loop. You're and as a viewer, as a Zoom caller, there's that moment. I went to one of his early online events and like he pinned it to me and I was like, this is fun. I'm having a fun time. And then it would go away, and I was like, oh, thank God, because it's not the same, right? I was like, oh no, my boss is watching me. I better have a good time. And then here we are with you, who has, with Club Q, you have found a way that not just makes it work, but like has attracted all this international attention. What do you think the secret is to making people feel engaged online, and what do you think will happen if live spaces open up again?
I mean, that's a good question. It's probably been the most asked question even since the beginning. Is like
Thank
people want
you.
to know, like, yeah, like what's going on in the future. And it's like, I will say, it's like we basically, I mean, anyone, I don't have to explain this to anyone. It's like, we don't know what tomorrow is going to look like.
Yes.
We don't know what next week looks like. We didn't know we had a vaccine until like, what, 3 weeks ago. And then all of a sudden now people are getting like shot up with it. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
things really fast. So, and Club Q plays into that, where it's like, we kind of have to take it a week at a time, a month at a time. We do have plans, but again, it's more or less just like, it could go this way, it could go that way. So, that's a whole thing. But I think what caught attention and why it worked for us is, one, it came from a really authentic place. This wasn't like for people being like, let's create this thing because like it's a good idea and we can like start a
Monetize
business from.
it.
It was just like, it started from wanting to connect with each other, and that
Yes.
was like the seed of it. And so, what grew from that was continuously just that, was just more and more people wanting to connect with each other. So it was really this kind of like authentic, kind experience that I remember thinking like, oh, like this, as someone who's been on the internet for a long time, utilize the internet, we're not used to spaces like this. We're so used to just hostility online, whether that's like a Reddit board or like the YouTube comments or
Yes.
something. Every safe space is like, there's always this dark underbelly.
Yes.
And of course, we've had to deal with like trolls and stuff like that, especially when we first popped off, we were like a troll's dream. But, and then we just found out ways to protect this space. But, it was just a really supportive space. And I think it was a really kind of fragile time, a vulnerable time for, especially for queer people. I mean, it still is, because we're in like lockdown 2 now,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, you know, it's like you take away that sense of community, and you take away,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, what's family. Or even for people who went back home in lockdown, and maybe they don't have the, like, you know, the best time with their
Yeah.
direct family.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like it was just this like experience. It was like this gateway. It was like this, yeah, it was just this moment where we could connect with each other. And I think it also plays into an element of like exhibitionism, which is huge, you know, in the queer community. Not everyone, but I think for every like shy, queer person, on the other side of that shyness is like just someone wanting to burst out, right? It's like we're always living in these two worlds. I know I am. And I think it just plays into that kind of performativeness that we miss so much from nightlife, right?
Yes.
Yes. In the same way that, like, whenever I go to a club, I see all, you know, the messy queers wanting to get up on the little tiny stage.
Yeah, and falling over because they're
like this woman falling over. Sometimes people are pushing people.
Yeah.
It's that same for like the spotlight moment,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like they get their spotlight moment.
Yeah.
People are able to control, you know, how they're seen. They're able to create this fantasy, whether that's aesthetically through the stuff they're wearing, how they dress up their apartment, how their lighting is. And it just plays into all of those different elements that I think really are vital parts of the community. And then just the fact that it was like a new thing, right?
Yes.
The fact that, like, in a very saturated world, it was kind of this like a Zoom party, although the technology was there, but someone utilizing it in a weird way. I think it was just kind of refreshing. And again,
it kind of happened real fast, like right after the first lockdown. Like, how soon after lockdown happened were you like, hey guys, we're going to create a cool, innovative new space. We're going to use technology that you've now been forced to use and hate. We're going to use it in fun way. It
wasn't that at all. It wasn't that in any way, shape, or form. It was literally like, I think it was like, I don't know the first day that we went into lockdown or officially, but it was like the weekend that it wasn't locked down yet, but it was like basically locked down, like they were telling people. And so it was Casey Mingus, Serena, and me, and a few other friends. We jumped on Instagram Live, or not Instagram Live. It was like the Instagram video chat.
Yes.
And we were just like having fun, blah, blah, blah. And then we added a few people, and we were just using filters, and it was stupid. And then we were like, same place, same time tomorrow. And then someone recommended Zoom. And they're like, well, why don't you do Zoom so we can have more people in the chat? And literally we all looked at each other and we were like, what's Zoom? Like, I don't know what Zoom is. Because it's like, I went to film school way back in the day. And it's like, I have never been in an office. Like, so it's like, I don't know what Zoom is.
Oh, you're so lucky.
Yes, I'm
so
like, I don't
lucky.
know this, right? So we created that the next night. And we jokingly said club, I think that night or something, we were like, let's call it club quarantine as a joke. Like, we didn't even know there's a mute. So the first night, I think it was like the next night, or it could have been like something, we did the Zoom, and we all had like friends from like LA, Montreal, New York, Toronto, like all just like pop up. And Serena was playing music, and literally just through her speaker, like it was like as if I was playing it right now through the computer. Like, it was really tinny, and it was like the music wasn't good, but we were still like all dressing up and having a fun time. And then our friend Stephen Dunn messaged us and was like, I jokingly got the Club Q name on Instagram, and then he gave it to us. And again, at this time, it's all tongue in cheek, and we were like, aha, this thing is funny.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I think we, like, overnight when we woke up, there's like 400 people following us. And then by the end of the day, it was like 1,000, and it just happened so quickly. And then we decided, because we thought lockdown was going to be 2 weeks.
Yes.
We were like, let's just do it every night of the lockdown. And we put it in our bio. And then by the end of that weekend, by that Monday, we started to get calls from local press wanting to talk about it, and everyone is really rushing to like be the first one to break this article. So we were having like, I just remember like, I was watching like, I think I was watching Bridesmaids or something, and I was just like, I remember Mingus texting us to be like, oh, my friend at, I think it was Now or something, because YOHOMO was the first, like, Phil was the first person
Of
full
course.
circle to post it on YOHOMO. And I remember thinking that was so cool because like you use YOHOMO to like
Yes.
find where to go out, like you know that is a directory, and so I was like, that's really cool. And then Now happened, and I remember in the course of like an hour, it was like I went from like watching Bridesmaids to all of a sudden having like to answer 3 pages worth of questions, and the deadlines for everyone was like 5 o'clock. And I just remember being like, this is really stressful. This is really, little did I know I would never rest again. And then it was like by the end of that second week, then it was international press. And within that first week too, that's when like Charlie XCX, when we only had, I think like 4,000 followers, that's when her team contacted us and was like,
wow.
oh, you guys are doing a really cool thing. So it was just all happening so fast. And it was like, people were telling us that this thing was cool. We were just like following suit, and we all of a sudden became the people that were like having to take care of this thing, but it was kind of like growing in front of us. And we were just making sure that it like, you know, that it was, we were protecting it like it was our baby, but this baby was growing big. This was a big baby. This is a big baby. So yeah, it was just that. And I think that because it happened so quickly, there was a dead period there. That first week of lockdown, no one was really doing anything. I remember even asking certain performers and artists, just local, on our first week to be like, oh, would you want to jump on? And like, I remember just everyone being like, no, I'm just taking this week to like figure out what I'm doing and like the lockdown. And I remember being a little like, to be honest with you, like taken aback by that, because I was like, even though we still didn't know what we were creating, I was just like, it felt very normal for me and every one of us to just keep working. Like there's like the world's crumbling, of course. Like I would like, this is our job now. Let's go on Zoom. That's our stage. And I remember just being like so angsty. I'd be like to anyone that would be like, no, I'm just taking the time, which like,
you'd be like,
you know,
for what? What are you saving it for?
I was like, this is when we do it. When the world pauses, this is when they need us, not when things are good. And I was like so normal Ray about being an artist. Like, it was so ridiculous. But yeah, so it was, I think it was just that there was a silent moment of just like white noise, and we just happened to like jump up in that moment. And then it just blew up and became a moment.
That's amazing. I mean, that was the inspiration for my Instagram live show. Lockdown, my first week started working at home was the week of St. Patrick's Day. And on St. Patrick's Day, which was the 17th of March, I turned on my Instagram live and I was like, what is this button? You know, and I was just like, and about 3 people that I knew were like, hi. And I was like, hi, am I doing it? Is this right? Should I come back tomorrow? And they were like, yes. And so I did that. And for 100 days. And then I was exhausted.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's a lot, because I think a lot of people, to this day, I think a lot of people, when they like think what our process is a little different than what it is. They so much think about like, oh, you're doing that experience every night, and they just see that block of time when you're doing it. They're not seeing all of the work leading up to that, which is with us
full day.
You know, it's like every day. But it's like, just because you're doing it every day doesn't mean that you get to like take it easy or focus on each piece because you're doing it more. It's like you have to give each one the same attention as if it was like a once a month piece. But you have a limited time, and your body needs to sleep and eat sometimes. And I get those were things were last priority. I remember being like, oh my God, I did not eat today. That happened all the time, because like it was just like
Brad.
I know. My mom can't, if I lose 1 pound, my mom is going to start spreading rumors that I'm ill, like she always does. But I know. I'm like, Mom, like, you're a sicko. Like, I don't know.
Leave me alone.
My mom's a star at Club Q. My mom became like a low-key star at Club Q when like she comes on the screen in her creepy rocking chair, smoking like a joint. Like, they love her. So my mom finally got the shine that she always wanted, and she's piggybacking off my success. I see you, Lorraine. I see you.
And so what is Club Q doing now? So you were every day. You're not every day anymore. So we were every day until June, and then we were going to be every day in June, but then with all of the activity that was happening in June, and it was just a very sensitive time, we really had to
that was kind of like end of honeymoon period for Club Q,
Yes.
where it became, we really had to refocus on what we were doing. We had to completely, like, I hate to say rebrand because it wasn't branding, but really had to just like everything we knew and everything we structured and was finally coming comfortable in, we had to completely switch. And we just, you know, it was like just not the time, because we turned every party in June into a fundraising element of some sort.
Right.
What that meant was that we just couldn't do it every night because we were having to, like, you know, when you're raising money and, you know, with charities come involved, it's like then there is a lot of workload to a party. So, and it was just like we just didn't feel, it was weird because in June it was like, it was a weird balance for us because we were like, is this the right time to be partying in any sense or look like you're having fun in any sense?
Yes. Yeah, with all the Black Lives Matter.
Yes, exactly. And there was a, you know, and it was a time, it was a time where we really had to listen to the community and tell us, like, if, you know, because we always want to be the place for escape.
Yes.
And that was always our thing. It will always be an escape, but sometimes you need to take action that's beyond just being escapism, and you need to take direct action. So we were like, what can we do that others can't? And it's like, we can raise money easily through partying.
Yeah.
Our community, the Club Q community, are so generous. And the amount of money they have raised for causes is insane. So like, but it's, you know,
brag a little.
I'm bragging on their behalf. Like, I mean, I just go in the chats and say, I drop the PayPal. They do the most. Yeah, I'm over here to say, but yeah, so it was a time where it was like, oh, this could be it for Club Q. Essentially, we were like, and we would just have to be okay with what we've done, and that was a really cool moment.
Yeah.
But we figured out a way to really kind of like utilize what we have in a respectful manner, and really just kind of like utilize our social media too, because at that time we were like, whoever wants our social media, take it for a cause. There's like a number there. You know what I mean? At this time, me as a white person, I'm taking a back seat. But then what came out of that was basically we were able to, in the summer, go down to, I think we were like 2 parties a weekend or 1 party a weekend, and just kind of test out those waters and see what that was. And now we're a party a week, and it really just, it's kind of been a blessing in a weird way to have 1 party a week, because it's really allowed us to now fine tune everything that we weren't able to before, because you're moving so fast. So now we're able to actually look at things like branding. What do we want to represent? What's our mission statement? Like really start to act like a business now,
right?
With like me, who has no business experience, so it's like we are so green still. But there's an element of faking it till you make it, and also just learning as you go. And also it have the benefit of also being new, so you're able to not just learn the rules, but kind of rewrite certain rules a little bit, right? Like there were times where we probably had no right, you know, putting our fist down with some of the people we were on calls with and stuff like that. We should have just been so grateful. But from the start, we were literally just like, no, if it doesn't look this way, if it doesn't represent, especially in Pride, right? Because you're dealing with Pride sponsors, which are usually a majority.
Pretty clear about what their branding strategy is.
They're like, by the time July 1st rolls around, we'll talk to you, you know, a year after that again. So it's like, you know, but it was like, we really wanted to make sure that we were, you know, doing things in a way that was truthful to who we are. And we're still able to do that. So that's what we're doing now. We're doing a party a week. We do takeovers on our Instagram. We're still raising money. And yeah, we're just trying to like really, just kind of like utilize everything that we've developed in order to push queer media forward, and push, you know, the Zoom parties forward. They're evolving as well. We have some really exciting stuff that we're going to be doing later on. And then just to talk on IRL parties, we have some really exciting conversations going. Again, we don't know how 2021 will look. You know, we don't. So, but there is some talks about like, you know, possible, like when able to do so, like touring and stuff like that, and being able to like physically go to the communities that we've been able to access and with. And yeah, I mean, there will always still be a blend of those two. I think our dream is to somehow blend the digital with the IRL.
Yeah.
The idea of, you know, having nights where, however this looks, but, you know, it's like, whether it's like having cameras inside or something, or just being able to live stream that night. So there's people who can still access that kind of excitement.
Yeah.
It is different experiences, but at the same time, it's like just making it more accessible to people that through Club Q, you know, we've been able to shine the spotlight on the fact that clubbing, especially in, you know, in the queer community, it is like a church for a lot of people, right? It is, and it always has been. And we experience nightlife in a different way that I don't think straight people could really have done like a Club Q and done it every night and kept the same momentum, because I just think that there's a different weight put on nightlife than there is for straight people. Because again, if that's the only space you get on a Friday or Saturday night in a world where you don't really feel safe, that's not built for you, you're going to look at it differently, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of people, whether it be, you know, because they're not able-bodied, or like they have social anxiety, it's like they still want to be able to access those, but they can't.
Or they live with their parents now because they don't, they can't afford to live in the city.
Exactly.
And yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. So it's like, it's just utilizing all that. We're still figuring it out, but that's kind of, that's basically the portfolio of like everything we hope to do in the next year.
No big deal.
No big deal. You know, it's a terrifying thought. Absolutely.
Then we're done.
But the thing is, it's like, you know, it's so, all of it is in the air. And for someone like me who likes to have security and knowing what we're doing, it's like I feel for a lot of people, you having to surrender that and create a business with the idea that the world is just so up in the air right now. It's something that you definitely have to remind yourself. You're like, just breathe, you know. There's so many times you get excited about things too, and then they just like fall through because of a new lockdown or something. So you really can't marry an idea. You just have to be like, okay, that's a really cool thing if it happens, and if not, we've always got Zoom. And if Zoom shuts down, well, this was great.
Well, I thank you not just for the Toronto bonus, because, you know, who doesn't like warm fuzzies, but also for contributing to maybe what will be like a rebirth and a resurgence of queer energy. And I mean, tapping into what we all, you know, want to share and providing space for that. And so I wish you a very exciting 2021 that's maybe slightly more predictably exciting.
I hope so, and hopefully more, for me, more promiscuous. It's been a moment. It's been a moment. That'll
be a whole other episode, but I hope to talk about that.
We're gonna call it a whole new episode, okay? We're gonna call it that.